The De Medicis. Before banks had buildings, before money had rules, there were the Medicis. Starting as wool merchants in 14th century Florence, they didn't conquer Europe with armies. They conquered it with credit. The Medici Bank invented the letter of credit, allowing merchants to transfer wealth across borders without moving a single gold coin. Every modern wire transfer, every international transaction, every financial instrument you've ever used traces back to a system a Florentine merchant family invented before 1400. They produced 4 popes: Leo X, Clement VII, Pius IV, and Leo XI. Catherine de' Medici became Queen of France in 1547 and is credited with introducing the fork to French dining, political assassination as a diplomatic tool, and the concept of the royal ballet, all in the same reign. Michelangelo lived inside their palace as a teenager. Their coat of arms, 6 red balls on a gold shield, still decorates hundreds of buildings across Tuscany. The Farnese. The Farnese rose to power through a calculated seduction. Alessandro Farnese became Pope Paul III in 1534, largely because his sister Julia had been the mistress of the previous pope, Alexander VI, of the Borgia family. Paul III commissioned Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling's Last Judgment, launched the Council of Trent that restructured all of Catholic doctrine, and founded the Jesuit order in 1540, the most powerful religious intelligence network in history, still operating in over 110 countries today. The Farnese Palace in Rome, begun in 1517, took 75 years to build and became the architectural template for every royal palace in Europe that followed. The family controlled the Duchy of Parma and Piacenza for nearly 2 centuries. The Massimo. The Massimo family claims to be the oldest noble family in Rome, and possibly the oldest in the world. They trace their lineage directly to Quintus Fabius Maximus, the Roman dictator who saved Rome from Hannibal in 217 BC by refusing to engage in direct battle, a strategy now called Fabian tactics, still taught in military academies today. For over 2,000 years, the Massimo name appears in papal records, Senate documents, and Roman civic rolls without interruption. No other family on earth can document continuous noble lineage across that time span. Unlike the Medici or Rothschild dynasties, the Massimo accumulated no spectacular industrial fortune. Their currency was time itself. The Colonna. The Colonna family has been one of the most powerful forces in Roman Catholic politics since the 11th century. They produced 1 pope, Martin V, elected in 1417, who ended the Great Schism that had split the church between 3 simultaneous claimants. But their true power was never the throne. It was controlling who sat on it. The Colonna and Orsini families fought for dominance over Rome so persistently that medieval chroniclers called their conflict the defining feature of Italian politics for 300 years. Marcantonio II Colonna commanded the papal fleet at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571, the largest naval battle of the 16th century, involving over 400 ships, where Christian forces defeated the Ottoman Empire and stopped the Islamic expansion into Europe. Their private art gallery contains one of the largest ceiling fresco cycles in Rome, painted specifically to commemorate Lepanto. The Pallavicini. The Pallavicini, also spelled Pallavicini, built their power on salt. In medieval Italy, salt was a strategic resource more valuable than most metals. The family controlled salt production and distribution across the Po Valley for centuries, accumulating wealth that funded a banking operation that eventually rivaled the Medici. Gianluigi Pallavicini served as a field marshal for the Habsburg Empire in the 18th century, governing Milan under Empress Maria Theresa. The family's Genoese branch became one of the primary financiers of Spanish colonial expansion into the Americas, meaning they indirectly funded the conquest of an entire hemisphere without setting foot on a single ship. The Palazzo Pallavicini Rospigliosi in Rome houses a famous ceiling fresco by Guido Reni called Aurora, painted in 1614, the Torlonia. The Torlonia are the newest family on this list and the most deliberately obscure. Giovanni Torlonia arrived in Rome in the late 18th century as a draper's assistant from France. Within 2 decades, he had become the primary banker to the papal court, lending money to 3 consecutive popes and using those relationships to acquire assets across Rome at prices no competitor could match. When Napoleon occupied Rome and stripped the old nobility of their wealth, Torlonia bought everything: palaces, estates, titles, at collapse prices. By 1820, a man who had arrived in Rome with nothing owned more of the city than families who had been there for centuries. His descendants drained the Fucino Lake in 1875, one of the largest drainage projects in history, converting 155 square kilometers of lake into farmland, and owned all of it. The Torlonia marbles, one of the greatest private collections of ancient Roman sculpture ever assembled, was kept locked in a warehouse for 80 years and only partially exhibited in 2021. The SAXE GOTHA. In 1825, a small German duchy produced a dynasty that would quietly colonize every major royal house in Europe through strategic marriage. Duke Ernest I of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha engineered matrimonial alliances across the continent with the precision of a military campaign. His son Albert married Queen Victoria of England, making the Saxe-Coburg bloodline the root of the British royal family. Another branch produced Leopold I, the first king of Belgium. Another produced Ferdinand II of Portugal. Another married into the Russian imperial line. By 1900, the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha bloodline ran through the veins of the ruling families of Britain, Belgium, Portugal, Bulgaria, and Russia simultaneously, all from a duchy smaller than the state of Rhode Island. The Rothschilds. In 1744, Meyer Amschel Bauer was born above a pawn shop in the Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt and changed his name to Rothschild. Red Shield, after the symbol on his door. He sent 5 sons to 5 cities: London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, Naples. They financed both sides of the Napoleonic Wars simultaneously. Nathan Rothschild received news of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo a full day before the British government and used that information to collapse and then buy the British bond market in a single morning. Their family motto, Concordia, Integritas, Industria, appears on a coat of arms featuring 5 arrows bound together, 1 for each son. The Rothschild family controlled an estimated half of Europe's entire wealth. The Cavendish. The Cavendish family has been one of the most powerful aristocratic dynasties in Britain since the 16th century, yet they appear almost nowhere in popular consciousness. They own Chatsworth House, one of the largest private estates in England, with 35,000 acres of land. They have produced multiple prime ministers, governors general, and senior cabinet members across 3 centuries. But what made them uniquely powerful was their role in the Glorious Revolution of 1688. The first Duke of Devonshire was among the 7 nobles who personally invited William of Orange to invade England and replace King James II, effectively engineering a regime change that established the constitutional monarchy system still in place today. The Windsors. The British royal family changed its name from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to Windsor in 1917 during World War I to sound less German. King George V and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany were first cousins. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, executed by the Bolsheviks in 1918, was also a first cousin, and the British government refused to offer the Tsar asylum despite repeated requests, fearing it would destabilize their own monarchy. The Windsors maintained direct power over 15 sovereign nations. The Crown Estate controls over $15 billion in property across the United Kingdom. Prince Philip stated in a 1988 interview that, if reincarnated, he would return as a deadly virus to reduce human overpopulation. The Romanovs. The House of Romanov ruled Russia for 304 years, from 1613 to 1917, the longest continuous dynasty of a major power in the modern era. At their peak under Alexander III and Nicholas II, the Romanovs controlled 1/6 of the entire land surface of the earth. Tsar Nicholas II was the wealthiest individual in the world in 1916, with a personal fortune estimated at $900 million, roughly $300 billion in today's terms. The family was executed in a basement in Yekaterinburg on July 17, 1918. Nicholas, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children, and 4 servants by a Bolshevik firing squad. The bodies were buried in a mass grave covered in acid, and the location kept secret for 73 years. DNA testing in 1991 confirmed the identities. The Habsburgs. No family in Western history held power longer. The House of Habsburg ruled the Holy Roman Empire almost continuously from 1438 to 1806, 368 years. Their motto, Bella gerant ali, tu felix Austria nube, let others wage war, you, happy Austria, marry. The most extreme consequence of this strategy was Charles II of Spain, the product of so much concentrated intermarriage across generations that historians have calculated his inbreeding coefficient exceeded that of a child born to siblings. He could not chew solid food, could not produce an heir, and died at 38 in 1700, triggering the War of the Spanish Succession that killed hundreds of thousands and reshaped the Western world. Karl von Habsburg, the current head of the family, sits on the board of a pan-European political foundation and has stated publicly that national sovereignty is an outdated concept. If you made it this far, drop a like, subscribe, and comment what topic you want me to cover next.